Hi, Mark. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, our pleasure. I'm looking forward to you sharing your story with our listeners and giving them some perspective on the business you're currently running and how that can serve as inspiration to them. So before we get into your current practice and what you're currently doing in the wellness community, I would love for you to share with the listeners what you were doing beforehand and kind of how you got started. Is this always something you were doing? Is it something you were always interested in? You're, in your 30s. What were you doing, out of college and whatnot?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've always been interested in health and wellness. I think I used to love going to the gym, and I remember as a kid, I always had a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger up on my wall. I want to be like him. So it's funny to think back that far, but I guess that's where it started. And for me, then I went and transitioned into the military after high school. So, you're in the military, you're getting all this physical stuff, but you're also learning all this mental stuff too. So, I love that aspect of it where I was getting the physical, hey, we're going to put you through the ringer here, but also you're getting that mental development too, the building on that mental toughness, or in some ways you don't realize it, but your own health toughness or something. But so from there, I did my 4 years. I got out of the military. It was great. It's like an amazing experience. The journey was awesome. You're going through it. You're kind of, this is taking forever. 4 years, man. Okay. But, once you get out, you're proud of what you did. I was so happy to serve the country and all that. So it was really my driving force to joining. But then, as I got out, I took a job as a defense contractor, which was like the golden job as a Marine. You're getting out, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm working for this huge defense contractor. This is amazing. And you're just going, it's cool because that's what everyone was talking about our 4 years in, landing a job like this, but it's really not fulfilling me, So I did that for 5 years. I actually went over to Iraq doing that. And I was making over 200K doing that, which was amazing. You're like making all this money as a young person, it was in my late 20s at that point. And I just kept saying, man, it doesn't feel right. It's great. It's so awesome to be able to do stuff over there overseas and help people out that are living in such poor conditions and trying to make a difference in their lives and, bring a sense of balance and positivity to them in some ways. But I just didn't feel quite aligned. So I said, all right, well, what's my next step? What could I do? And at that point they're like, well, how would you feel about going to Afghanistan? I said, not so good, because I just found out my wife's pregnant. So they kind of said, oh, okay, well, that would be the next stop for you. And so for me, I need to make a move. And it was hard because, to have that conversation. So you're going to leave your job making 200K, and how much are you going to make? What are you going to do? I said, oh, I have no idea. So it's like, okay, well, if you don't have any idea. So then I started to write some stuff down. I said, okay, I need to write some things down, put it on paper. And personal training was one of my top things. I had worked out when I was in Iraq. I saw, maybe I didn't have the insight I have today, but back then I was like, yeah, when I work out, my stress, I remember being at the gym one day and we were getting bombed, it's like rockets are going off. It's like in succession, you hear boom, boom. And then I was just like, all right, next set. So you see in a weird, deranged way how working out and pushing your body can actually calm it, and get you out of these stressful situations. So personal training for me was like, yeah, that's it. I want to do it. And I loved life coaching. So bringing that piece of it too, I'm like, oh, as a personal trainer, you see movies, but then you start talking to people that are in the training world and, oh yeah, I get to talk to my clients about, TV shows, movies, or health and wellness, mindset stuff. I was big into Tony Robbins back then. So I was like, oh, I can talk about Tony Robbins and personal training. That's great. All these little things that I get to incorporate. So through that, I decided, okay, personal training is going to be the decision. But was making $0 at it. So it was very frightening, scared time for us as a family. And my wife at the time, she's saying to me, what are you thinking? Could you pick something else that's more transitional? I said, I know, but just hear me out. I believe in this. I feel like this is my calling. This is, I don't know exactly the how of it yet, but I'm going to get there. I'm going to figure it out. And I did, but it was a journey again. And every time, you're going through this process as a personal trainer now, I'm saying, I got certified, I have clients, I'm starting to build up, you kind of feel like you plateau at a point and you're saying, well, I learned all this stuff. So yeah, now I just need to get more clients. But I realized when I stopped learning and growing, then I wasn't getting the clients. I was stuck. I was like plateauing at the number of clients I had, or some clients would leave. And so then I started to really ask those introspective questions to myself. I said, what could I be doing more of or learning more about? And I just picked my weakest points. Like for me, nutrition was my weakest point. I could tell you that right from the beginning. I knew about, the body stuff. I'd had enough exposure in the military with that and in my, previous years before the military. So I kind of knew that stuff. I could get that. You can work on tweaking your coaching, your cues, all that stuff. But the nutrition, I realized, all the trainers around me, amazing trainers, every place I've ever worked at had amazing trainers. And I've been so grateful for that. But the nutrition side, I would never talk about. I hear them talk about it. Wow, they know so much about nutrition. So how was your weekend? Yeah. Did you watch that show? Did you watch that movie? I kind of shield away from the question. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that was such a disservice for my clients and for myself too. And, if I wanted to impact people the way I want to, I couldn't do it just, skirting those tough questions. So I learned more about nutrition. As I started to learn more about nutrition, I started to learn more about wellness. Dr. Cabral became a mentor. It's like, okay, this guy, wow. I mean, he's kind of the same background. He was a trainer. Now he's, a doctor of naturopathic medicine. He's going through and he's really approaching this a different way I had some clients that would get stuck, and I found out later it was a hormonal imbalance or something that, because these were both female clients. I was like, oh man, yeah, I bet you that's what it was. I just didn't know at the time. And then I thought, man, I could have helped them, but I didn't because I didn't know. And they just stayed stuck. And I was trying to do everything. I was racking my brain, in session, out of session, like, what could I do? And through the process of, having a mentor and going through that with IHP or, just learning in general, like the podcast is where it started for me. I think, when Dr. Cabral had his podcast, when it first came out, every day listening to something, and then I could bring that to my clients. But then going through IHP, it's, full circle now. It's like, okay, I've gone through IHP. Now I know so much more about lab testing. I know so much more about the body, wellness, health, aging. And so I think bringing that into where I'm at today in the training world, it's crazy because you have these conversations with the clients that they just don't expect to have with a personal trainer. So it's like, what did you just say? Like, why should I run a food sensitivity test? I feel fine after I eat food. I know that's great. I'm glad you feel fine. I know you can eat anything because you're awesome. Like, I really believe that you are. Your stomach's the best stomach out there. It's the best stomach in the universe. You can handle anything. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, the reaction you're having 3 days from now when you don't think you're tired, you're exhausted, you have brain fog, whatever it is, you don't know what you're doing. And you're just, I feel off. And you're not thinking, hey, it was the pizza I had 3 days ago. So I think there's that balance of it. And so, through my transition, this has been my transition to where I'm at today, which I love, because I just feel like it's such a unique thing that we're doing in the training world that I don't see a lot of people doing.
Yeah, of course. And I feel like there's, we talk about at Equal Life, and Dr. Cabral talks, exercise is one component, nutrition is one component, supplements are one component, the gut. So bringing everything together is so important. And if you're kind of just cherry picking in one area, if you're just doing nutrition without asking a client to move their body, and you're just working out without asking them what they're eating, you can kind of leave people stuck. And, I think you saying, I think back to clients that I could have helped. Well, when we know better, we do better. There's always that learning that's involved. And it gets us to the point where once we know better, we start doing better for our clientele. And that's really what it's all about. My favorite part of this industry is there's always something to learn. Whereas if you're just working with a computer system, once you know the computer system, like, you're done until they update the computer system. Yeah. But you literally could learn anything additional at any point, at any given day, about what we do. And it's something that keeps us on our toes, but also as we continue to learn, we're able to better serve our clients.
Oh, totally. I mean, and that to me has, always been my, alert system, I guess. Whenever I hit that wall where I'm going to myself, I don't know I don't know. Shoot, I don't know. I go back and say, okay, well, who does know? And so that's where it's great to have, I think it is a unique and a smaller community, but it's growing and growing with, wellness and especially with IHP. I mean, just seeing it. But, I was actually had somebody doing a detox it was a couple of weeks ago. I said, oh yeah, if you need recipes, go to the Facebook page, because you can just type it in there, and I just happened to look, I'm like, oh, there's 11,000 people in this group. Like, that's crazy to me. So yeah. All these, although it's not mainstream as we've talked about it, or you see, I mean, it's so crazy to me to still hear some of the things that are talked about. Like, somebody was just telling, oh yeah, well, like, I love my Splenda. I'm like, oh, you love your Splenda. That's okay. That's great. But, how would you feel if I told you there might be some chlorine mixed in there? They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal, but I do feel like it's my job to tell you, and again, from a trainer standpoint, they're kind of like, how do you know this stuff? I said, well, I just continue to learn. And, if you have my job, I think my responsibility, if you have questions and I don't know the answers, I'll be the first to tell you I don't know, but I'll look it up and find out, and then come back with some real data or some real feedback for you, or some real knowledge that they can absorb and use in their daily practice, which I love, just integrating the two and saying, oh, well, drink a glass of water because it's great for your, cells. And I'm just like, look, when you wake up in the morning, have a glass of water, because you think about it, you've been sleeping for 8, hopefully hours or so, and you're dehydrated. So just keep it simple. Have a glass of water. And if you want to be an extra good student, put some lemon in there.
Yes. Yeah. The little tricks. And I think that it's so encouraging to know that you have a community and, someone like Dr. Cabral, but people that you can go to, resources for you to have a trusted source, to find more information, to then share it with your clients. That's so important too. So what I'd like to do now is, can we talk about your current practice? So sure. We got a good background on what was leading up to that. Share with our listeners what you're currently doing. So I assume you're still personal training, but let's kind of talk about your recent shifts and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic was a huge one. I always say, and I don't know who came up with Tony Robbins. It might be Tony Robbins, but it could be strong possibility. He'll say something like life is happening for you. And I heard that, I don't know, 1.5 years, 2 years ago. I was like, oh man, that's such a great point. Life is happening for you. So even though those unfortunate things happen, life is happening for you. So if you can understand that, even in the bad moments, I think you were talking about on a podcast last week, it's like, you're taking that and you're going like, okay, well, if life is truly happening for me, although this wasn't an ideal situation, I'm going to make the most of it. And so with the pandemic, I feel like that, unfortunate as this past year has been in so many ways, it's also been, how can we grow from this and how can we learn from it? So virtual training was the first thing. As a trainer, you're kind of like, the pandemic's happening. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I see people in person, how am I going to get them to go virtual? This could be bad. But in that moment, I kind of realized, I said, okay, dude, this isn't what you're about. You never think this way. This is just your brain playing a trick on you right now. Go back to what you truly believe, And so for me, I'm like, all right, you can't freak out or anything. You got to just adapt and figure it out. And so the mindset to me is huge. The mindset shift this past year, just because I've seen too with so many clients, whether they're current training clients or, they're people that have moved away. I check in on them, just seeing how they're doing. Like one of my clients is in Chicago. Like, oh yeah, I put on 20 pounds. Said, that's crazy. How? Well, I just wasn't active. I started working out more. So what we're doing now is we're really working on, so I kind of came up with the pandemic pounds, as we're calling them. So we're trying to help people, work off those pandemic pounds. And, so for me, it's figuring out what they did for this past year. And our whole team is doing this. Like, hey, what have you been doing the past year? Even if they've continued training with us, then what's your goal now? Because a lot of, and I think this speaks to wellness and health and training in general, exercise, activity. If you're consistent with it, you have a system in place. So hopefully, God forbid or whatever, there's no more pandemic or, it's always going to be out there, but there's not going to be a complete shutdown like it was. And if there is, we know how to deal with it better. But you see when there's a system in place, you see how that can help people through a pandemic, because the people that kept to the system of training, and a lot of my clients personally were like, hey, actually, could we train more? Because I'm not commuting to work now and I have more free time and I want to feel better. And, I've always pushed that as, look, it's not just about like looking great and feeling great, but I think feeling great is a huge part of it, but it's also just about having the consistency to help everything in your body function the way it should, whether it's your conscious mind, subconscious mind, your organs, whatever it is. It's more about pushing for that. So through this, I guess I could talk about it forever, but this past, what we've been focusing on is really getting people back to their regular schedule. If they've put on, those pounds over this pandemic, like how do we get them to get back to their regular systems? Or for those folks that didn't want to do virtual, I know many people put on 40 pounds. And I'm going, in a year, you put on 40. Wow. That's not judgmental, but that's crazy that happened. But you see the recipe: inactivity, eating out, people are drinking more. Like, I think I read a statistic that drinking doubled during the pandemic. It went up, it's crazy how much it went up. And that was considered a, essential, whatever. But I mean, I understand it though. So it's like, then through all this, my focus recently has been on the mind. Like, okay, what's controlling all of these decisions? What's controlling all these outcomes? What's controlling whether you work out or not? Or you're just going for a walk or something, or you decide to have a glass of water in the morning, and it's the mind. So for me, I think, I'm focusing on mindset, and a lot of the guys on the team here, that's what we've been working on with our clients too, is just, hey, what's the mindset like? I know a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but I think now through this year, it's actually something easier to talk about because people really can relate to it. It's not this fake thing. It's that no one wants to talk about. They know that they knew somebody, maybe it wasn't them. Maybe they were positive through the whole thing and they felt great, but they knew somebody that didn't, or someone lost their job, or somebody had a heart attack, or, the worst case, somebody died from, if it was pandemic related or not. But I think for me, that's our driving force now, is how do we get people in the right mindset? So if anything happens in their life, they can maintain and stay healthy and be their best selves.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said in the beginning, there was more time. And so some clients chose to work out more. Some clients chose to take that extra time and finish work early and sit down with a glass of wine or have a few extra beers, or we all can choose what we do with our time. I think maybe it's Einstein who said we all have the same 24 hours in a day. I forget who it was, but it is, I think we all kind of have this battle with mindset and time. And I don't feel like I have enough time. And we all have the same amount of time in any given day. And there's people that are of service to others and are doing wonderful things with their time. There's people that are, maybe digging themselves into more of a hole. And like you said, the only difference is mindset. And whether or not you think you can, or you think you will, or you can, and you will, versus, having a different, more negative mindset, it's the great equalizer. It's going to determine what your outcome is, one way or the other. And I think the pandemic, like you said, is a perfect example of how some people can grow and shift, and some people can kind of get more set in their ways.
Oh yeah. And then it's, to me, the other thing I took from that was the mindset piece, but also the system piece of it. I said, what's the one thing I noticed about people that stayed healthy and the people that didn't? Maybe, and I don't want to say, like, again, in a judgmental way, like you're healthy and you're not. But what I mean by that is, like, when the pandemic happened, my wife and I, we're doing the Candida bacterial overgrowth protocol, like, just by luck. We started on March 2nd, I think. And, like, okay, we're doing the, 4 weeks, no cheating, no onion and garlic, really? Okay. But so then we started going through this. And I just thought to myself, man, again, this is like life happening for you. Like, we were doing a system, we had a protocol. So through that whole first, I think it was the 5.5 months. We did the protocol, we finished the protocol, but it was 5.5 months. I think it was on my wife's birthday where we like sat down and had our first like glass of, like alcoholic or adult beverage libation, if you will. But that was crazy to me because again, we had a system in place. So we were like, okay, we're just going to stick to the status quo. I mean, every day I was doing 12-hour days virtual training down in our basement, which is like my office / toy room / workout room. And I'd have my smoothie, that would last me like 3 hours. I'd just keep sipping it down there. And then for lunch, I think I was having like a potato with ground turkey or something, but it was just, so it was like the system. And some days I wouldn't even eat lunch. Again, just speaking to having a system in place, we never felt healthier during that time. And that's to me, again, where I felt like, okay, well, I was asking clients, I'm like, do you have anyone you know of that needs help or is looking, for some assistance with nutrition or training or exercise, whatever it is, I'd love to have a conversation with them, or we'd love to have a conversation with them because we can point them in the right direction and just let them know. And that's what I've seen now. It's like more people are open to taking suggestions. More people are open to me just randomly text messaging them and like, instead of rolling their eyes, like, oh, this guy never shuts up. They're like, hey, okay, yeah, what did you say to do? The detox? Like I should do that? I'm like, yes, you should do that again. And don't look at it from a weight loss perspective this time. Look at it from a health perspective, because you told me you've been drinking more. You told me you've been feeling tired. You don't have the mental clarity that you used to have. So let's do something about it. And you have a phone that you can literally pick up and text me and say, hey, I'm feeling this, this, and that. I just had somebody do it. Again, they're just like, oh, I'm tired, bloated. I have a massive headache. It's okay. We'll take a little sip of black coffee. You're going to be okay. Keep doing the detox. Mm-hmm. So it's just, to me, again, the systems, systems to me are so important.
The systems make sure that there's no breakdown, right? If we think about everything in the world that has a system, like if your car breaks down, there's a system to make sure that you can get your car back on the road. If your computer stops working, there's a system to make sure that the computer doesn't actually crash. There's warning signs. And when we have systems in place, I think your point is like when we have systems in place with our own life's always going to happen around us. It can happen for you or it can happen to you. And I think that's generally the shift in mindset. But when life does happen, if you maintain your systems, you're kind of unwavered. So is that a big portion of, and when you say your team, you're the owner of the company, you're running a team of other personal trainers. And is that kind of what you mainly share as far as mindset and like wellness is concerned? And then the personal training is the physical aspect. You put clients through a workout daily, but then you're also emphasizing the nutrition and systems place. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I think, again, that's what's great about having this community where you set that precedent right from the beginning. So when people are coming in, we're trying to make it or take out the guesswork as much as possible, saying, okay, what's your experience with the training world or a personal trainer? Have you ever had a personal trainer or done anything like this? Oh yeah, I know I've had a trainer before. Okay, cool. Did they take your measurements? So we'll start off by taking their measurements, because we want to know their lean mass, their body fat percentage and their weight, and get all those metrics, BMI, just again, more data, the better. And we're starting them off in that system. So it's like, okay, every 6 weeks, we're going to do these measurements. We're going to do them, today, 6 weeks from now, 12 weeks from now. But we're also saying, here's a nutrition guide for you too, where this is like broken down for you, meal plans, good foods you should be eating. But this is just a guide. I'm your coach. So when you have questions, the other piece of this is that you ask. This is part of the system. This is not just you training in studio. It's you leaving the studio. You're at the grocery store. I mean, I tell people, they're like, you need to set boundaries. I'm like, yeah, well, if I'm awake, I'm awake. I'm like, if it's 2 a.m, you have a question, send it because you'll forget it. Most people aren't going to take out their notebook. I'll write that down, or I'll put it in my phone and I'll text them in the morning. I'm like, just send it. When I wake up, I'll answer it, or whatever I get around to it, but you'll have an answer. Or we can talk about your training session, but it's never just about the training. It's always about the coaching aspect to me. So the system is it's teaching our clients that too, our community, saying, hey, it's cool that you're doing the nutrition, but we also need your measurements because we need to make sure that your nutrition is on point. When we're doing these measurements, we can see that if your lean mass goes way down and your pounds of body fat go way down, well, some people look at that and they go, oh, well, that's great. I lost 10 pounds in a week. Like, yeah. Well, let's just say it's 6 weeks because that's how we're measuring. But, let's say you lost 10 pounds, but 5 of that is from lean mass. Well, that's not a good situation. We need you to have lean mass. And that's not like the bulky, the rock kind of mass. It's the mass that you have on your bones, like, okay, that we want to continue to have until we're into our 70s, 80s and keep that, and that bone density and that blood flow, all that stuff. So we're trying to teach them that this is a full system program, however you want to look at it, that you're going to go through. But, the biggest part of this is the coaching aspect of it. When you have questions, you should ask, or we're going to reach out to you and say, hey, it's the weekend. How's it going? What's your plan? Are you going out to dinner? Are you having a cheat? Like typically we won't have them cheat for 3 weeks, just standards like, hey, let's cut this stuff out for 3 weeks and then see how you feel. But we love, having that structure and saying like, okay, here's the guide for the nutrition. So you can read this, but we're also coaching you through this because you're going to have questions. You're going to want to know what to do if you go out to dinner, or if you're going to someone's house for a cookout, what you can do. And then adapt it from there. Like I've told people, I'm like, bring a cooler with your own food. And they're like, you're crazy. I won't do that. Okay, great. Well, let me give you another example, or give you another thing you can try. If they have salad there, just eat the salad. So it's to me, the coaching and then the mindset piece too. Yeah. It's, as a team, we talk about this a lot because people get good results through nutrition and through exercise. But then there's this piece where they keep going back, or they, maybe they drop 20 pounds and they put 5 back on. And they can't seem to continue to make the progress. But then we find out it's a mindset thing, really. It's just, it's either negative self-talk or, so maybe it's, and what I love about what we do here, it's the community. So everyone cares about each other. You can have these great conversations that go deeper than just, how is your TV show, or what are you watching on Netflix now? It's more like, hey, how are you doing with nutrition? Really? How are you doing with your internal talk, whatever that is? Like, are you feeling great? Are you feeling amazing? Are you, speaking to yourself that way? And you can oftentimes tell that they're not because of their responses to some of the questions you ask them about their food, exercise, or if they're, just seem more stressed. You see that. And I think, again, to me, you learn that through the wellness. For me, learning more and more through Integrative Health Practitioner was that I was like, if I see someone with bags under their eyes and, just really short temper that day, I'm thinking to myself, I might not say anything. I just go, all right, seems like they might be having a bad day. What can I do to find that out, first of all, but also to help coach them today? And maybe today's not the day to push them on their workout. Maybe today's the day to say, hey, look, we're going to do 2 sets and how's everything going? Let's look at, wow, I'm super stressed. And that goes into more of like supplementation. People talk about supplementation, like, well, have you ever tried, I couldn't sleep last night. Have you ever tried this Calm stuff? I think it's behind me here, but have you ever tried Calm? At night, it's delicious. You put it in your drink and you go to bed. It's amazing. You get some great sleep. And they're like, no, I've never tried that. And then they come in the next day, or they text me, I've never slept so good. So I think it's just developing all that into coaching for the one-on-one clients that we have. And that's what we do as a team. But what's also great as a team and a community is where I know I'm getting long-winded here, but like we're talking to each other about it. Hey, I'm getting stuck with this client, or, this client is presenting these issues, and, the trainer or whoever might know it. But, as a team, we go, well, you know what? I've also had this happen because of this before. And are they open to running lab tests or something? Again, it's just giving us, that transitional period where we could say, okay, well, they've been pretty good with the nutrition. They've done the exercise. They've gone through their 12 weeks. What's next? And what I love most about it too is how that relates to clients that we have just going through their 12 weeks, but then clients that we've had for 5 or 6 years. Hey, you've never tried a Candida bacterial overgrowth protocol. What in the world is that? Well, it is a bunch of fun, let me tell you. and you start to explain it to them, and you start to explain why though, like, hey, if you want to know for sure, you should run a lab test. Run the organic acid test, but I almost could guarantee you have a bacterial overgrowth just from the symptoms you've told me. And so we can approach it many different ways. You could take this protocol. But again, I think that's another thing we're adding in that just not a lot of people are adding that. And I would love for that to become more mainstream. And that's what I think is so great about doing Integrative Health Practitioner. It's just bringing these communities together. But that's not just through IHP or training, it's through chiropractor, through massage, through dentistry, through doctors. I could go on and on. I mean, just having this conversation.
Anybody that's dealing with wellness. And we know that I mean, yeah, our bodies need the chiropractor is working on structural issues. A dentist is working on our mouth, and any kind of modality in the wellness field is all intertwined. But it's so interesting because I feel like everything that you touched upon that's important in running your business the way that you are and getting your own coaches to coach in a way that kind of resonates with your specific mindset. It sounds like it's so much based on getting the client to truly trust you and having this relationship where, you can kind of gently say like, "Well, how's your day going?" And when they say, "Oh, I'm just super stressed," you're a place where they can very objectively and very honestly share with what that is. And so many people just feel unheard and not understood because we live in such a fast-paced world where no one is being like, "You know what, let's slow down." Like no one's boss is like, "Hang on, let's slow down. Let's talk about how you're doing today. What happened last night? Was it a rough night at home? Are the kids not sleeping?" No one's slowing you down to hear that side of your life. And so having a coach, and I think that this is really how you probably set yourself apart. You're not just a personal trainer putting somebody through a workout, but you're acknowledging all aspects of their wellness and their well-being in general. And I think by touching upon the mindset, the stress, their life outside of the gym and their workouts is a huge part of it. Even if they did 3 workouts with you a week, that's on the higher end. And let's call it an average of 3 hours. Well, there's another, I'm terrible at math, but 24 times 7 in and around maybe 160 hours a week where they're not with you. And that's a lot of time where things can get pretty messed up. And so by you giving them a system, you giving them accountability and giving them support, they're probably much better set up for success in that way, which it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And, the reminders never cease, they're always there. It's, I just had a doctor's appointment and, it's just like, my endocrinologist, he loves me. He thinks I'm like this crazy Martian alien person. He's like, "I don't even know where to start or end with you." And I'm like, "That's great. I love that," and I picked him because he was very open to me. I had Hashimoto's, and so it's something that runs in my family, and everyone, "Oh, well, you should be overweight, losing your hair and all that." I'm like, "Yeah, I just don't believe in that." And again, that was something that Dr. Bral helped me with and understand, like, just because you have Hashimoto's doesn't mean you have to be X, Y, and Z. You don't fit this mold. It's not cookie cutter, whatever. And for me, my symptoms were always just tiredness. It wasn't, I wasn't like, "Oh, what is that? Did I lose more hair today? Oh, okay." Or, "Well, put on another 5 this week." I mean, it's, "Oh, well, I worked out and I ate well, but it's just, it's just the way it is." So, but what I loved about the process of it, what I've just learned, because I'm kind of this anomaly with these weird health things, but like, I've had this clotting thing going on for years, right? No one really could put a finger on it, but I'm like, look, I don't really care because I feel amazing. My body functions so well, like I don't even think about this stuff, but what I've been able to do is work with my doctors more. And I don't feel, 10 years ago, if you asked me, I would have been like, "Okay, doc, whatever you say, you're my doctor." And I'm not putting doctors, I love doctors. And I think they're obviously, they need, we need doctors. Let me just say that. I should have prefaced with that. I love doctors, are the best, but they get trained in what they get trained in. Like I was trained to be a Marine. I wasn't trained to be a surgeon, it's like, okay, but I'm going to do surgery. So like, I think if I slice here, it's not that way. So what I started to learn from, doctors, 10 years ago, I would just listen and say, "Well, I guess if I need to take this pill, I guess I need to take it. You're telling me this." But then to know that there's another approach that's maybe been around for thousands of years. And that's what I've been able to do, with like IHP and learning with my endocrinologist, and I mean, my levels for my thyroid are crazy, I mean, some of the highest that he'd ever seen. And now they're almost perfect, so it's like crazy when you go through that. And that's all through natural supplementation, through just eating, consistently the way I like to eat. And I'm not saying I don't have fun. I still have my balance. I believe that's a huge thing. It goes to that mindset piece where you have the balance. But what I like about it now is I can give educated, decisions or talk about educated decisions with my doctor. And I just had this morning where I was talking to my doctor and I said, "Look, here's what I'm comfortable doing. So I agree with you on this. But I also agree because I know these certain things about my body, like, let's just revisit and talk about it, whatever. But I can have this conversation that, with confidence that I'd never would have been able to have 10 years ago. And I feel like a lot of people to this day, just from having conversations, mostly with family members and some clients, share this stuff, but they're like, well, my doctor says, I should just take this pill and that'll help with my heart or my, high cholesterol or, take a statin or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I love you. You're my family, but did you ever think maybe if you lost 10 pounds too, that could, and who cares about the weight again, or the looks or anything like that, but it might make you feel better and it might help you, through that way. So, I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but kind of just did. So to me, it's just crazy when you start to learn these things and how that really, it not only helps you, but it helps you serve the people you care most about, because all of us here, I think in our community, we don't just have clients, a lot of people say, oh, it's just my trainer, which I'm fine with. Okay, fine. Call me just your trainer. I don't care. But I look at it and our whole team, and the people I've been around with in the training world and now through the IHP community, it's like, we care about people. We want to serve people. We don't, getting stuff out there is amazing because it's sharing more good information with people. But really, when it comes down to it, it's about the level of service that we can provide and the information we can share with people to make them feel better and, work together with everyone. It's not just, well, you're a doctor and, I'm a natural. I believe more of a holistic approach. It's not about that. It's about us all working together and this community as an earth, as the world, not pointing fingers or whatever.
Yeah. And ultimately listening to the people that resonate with you, but listening to yourself too, and having that understanding that we're living in our bodies and we're the ones that are, most in tuned and should be, taking our health into our own hands. This was such a great conversation. I would love for you to share with our listeners where they can find you on social media, your website, more about your personal training studio. So if you wouldn't mind sharing those details with us, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Our training studio is in Boston, 540 Tremont Street, 4th floor, no elevator. So you love that. If you want to come check us out.
There you go. That's the first step to personal training. Get up the stairs.
Yes. And can be very mean on the way out, but it's okay. And, but yeah, so, that's where we're physically located, and where I am right now. And, on Instagram, if you go to, Mark Anderson _MWA, that's where you can find all the links for the studio. And we have the website, of course, MWAfitness.com. If you check that out too, that will give you a lot of the information for starting off. If you're looking to get into a consultation, we love doing that with people. Just there's never any obligation. It's never salesy or anything like that. It's just about, hey, let's figure out where you're at and see what's the best fit for you and get you, getting to your healthiest version of yourself. So yeah, those are the places. But yeah, thank you. This was awesome.
Yeah, we are so appreciative for you being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success podcast. And we'll look forward to being in touch soon. Continue the amazing work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you, Julia. I can't tell you how grateful I am. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
Sounds good.